The year is 1976. The place is the Laugh in the Dark Funhouse in Long Beach, California. For the cast and crew of the hit TV show, The $6 Million Man, this is just another film set. They're here to shoot a chase scene, and the art director needs to rearrange some of the creepy props to make the shot work. He grabs what he thinks is a dusty mannequin hanging from the gallows. It's an old brittle thing, covered in red paint and dust. He gives it a tug, and to his surprise, the arm snaps off. It's a moment of low-budget frustration, but as the director kneels to inspect the damage, the frustration turns to a chilling, heart-stopping realization. This isn't a prop. This isn't wax or plastic. This is a human bone. The dummy wasn't a dummy at all. It was a mummified corpse. And what happened next is a journey that began 65 years earlier, with a bungled train robbery and a man who couldn't stay buried. This is the story of Elmer McCurdy, the outlaw who became a spectacle in death. To understand the bizarre journey of Elmer McCurdy's corpse, you first have to understand the man himself. McCurdy was, by all accounts, a failure. He was a small-time criminal, a drunkard, and a man who desperately wanted to be a notorious outlaw of the Old West. He wasn't famous like Jesse James or Butch Cassidy. He was a walking punchline. In October of 1911, he decided to change that. With a few accomplices, he planned to rob a train carrying a massive sum of money. But in typical McCurdy fashion, he messed it up. He and his gang accidentally stopped the wrong train, a passenger train, and found only $46, a couple of bottles of whiskey, and some chewing gum. The legend of the bandit of the Oklahoma hills was off to a truly pathetic start. A few days later, on October 7, 1911, McCurdy's luck ran out for good. A posse cornered him in a barn in Oklahoma, and after a tense shootout, he was killed. It was a predictable, unremarkable end to an unremarkable life. His body was taken to the Johnson Funeral Home in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, and that's where his story truly began. The undertaker, Joseph Johnson, waited for someone to claim McCurdy's body, but no one ever did. He sent telegrams to every town McCurdy had ever mentioned, but got no replies. So Johnson, a practical man, made a decision that would send McCurdy on a journey far more famous than any he ever intended to take in life. He embalmed the body with a heavy dose of arsenic, which preserved it perfectly. And then he got an idea. The body of a failed outlaw had more value than the living man. Johnson decided to turn McCurdy into a local attraction, a kind of historical oddity. He dressed him up, gave him a rifle, and propped him up in the funeral home with a sign that read, "The Embalmed Bandit." He charged a nickel to see him, and people came in droves. Johnson had inadvertently turned death into a commodity, and McCurdy, in death, was finally a financial success. This grotesque novelty continued for 5 years. But in 1916, 2 carnival promoters, brothers named James and Charles Patterson, showed up at the funeral home. They pretended to be McCurdy's long-lost relatives and convinced Johnson to release the body to them. The undertaker, not knowing what else to do with the permanent attraction, agreed. And so, the corpse of Elmer McCurdy was loaded into a crate, and his bizarre decades-long road trip began. The Pattersons renamed him the outlaw who would never be captured alive, and he became a permanent fixture in their traveling sideshow. For years, he was a star, a bizarre object of morbid curiosity, touring the country in a train car. But as the years turned into decades and the world moved on from sideshows, McCurdy's fame began to fade. His body, once perfectly preserved, began to deteriorate from neglect. He was sold from one carnival operator to another, a piece of merchandise changing hands. He appeared in crime exhibits and haunted houses. At one point, he was even labeled a dead dope fiend and used in a low-budget film to promote a drug awareness campaign. His shriveled skin blamed on drug abuse rather than his heavy embalming. The man who was a failure in life had a second career as a failed showman in death. His face, once recognized, was now covered in layers of paint. His fingers, toes, and ears were lost or broken off. The only identity he had left was his lack of one. He was just a prop. By the 1960s, he had been forgotten entirely. Nobody knew who he was, or even that he was a real person. He was simply known as the 1,000-year-old man, a spray-painted dummy swinging from a noose in the Long Beach Funhouse, seen but not truly noticed by the terrified passengers on the ride. He had traveled an estimated 1.5 times around the entire Earth. For 65 years, Elmer McCurdy had been a joke, a spectacle, a prop. his tragic and absurd story was finally about to come to an end. We return to the Funhouse in 1976. The art director has just broken off the arm of the dummy, and the police are on their way. They initially think it's a prank, a macabre joke played by a crew member. But things only get stranger when the corpse arrives at the Los Angeles County Coroner's office. It's a shocking sight, a 50-pound, leathery, shriveled husk of a man. The true cause of death is found only when the coroner discovers a copper jacket bullet still lodged in its chest. The authorities began a painstaking investigation, tracing the history of the body based on the bullet and a few other clues found with the corpse, including a 1924 penny and some old ticket stubs. The final, stunning answer came a week later, when they were able to officially identify the body as Elmer McCurdy, the failed outlaw from 1911. The story of the traveling mummy made headlines. After decades of being a forgotten object, Elmer McCurdy was finally and ironically famous. The story of Elmer McCurdy's life and death is a testament to the fact that sometimes history is stranger than fiction. It is a story about the complete lack of dignity a human life can endure, even after it's over. It's a tragedy that unfolds as an absurd comedy, and it perfectly aligns with the bizarre, shocking, and sometimes hilarious history we uncover on this channel. On April 22, 1977, Elmer McCurdy was finally laid to rest in Guthrie, Oklahoma, a full 66 years after his death. But to ensure his grotesque tour was truly over, and to prevent any future exploitation, a final, fittingly extreme measure was taken. 2 cubic yards of concrete were poured over his casket. He was finally and forever staying put. So, what do you think? Is it a story of tragedy, of a life so without dignity that it became a traveling joke in death? Or is it a testament to the strange things people do for money? Tell us what you think in the comments below.